So my first legendary raid in Pokemon Go was on May 5th, 2020. At that point, I was a pretty casual player. I didn't know about Discord. I didn't know about raid groups. And having just started GBL at that point, if you had asked me if I could ever survive in Master League or even make it to the highest rank in Master League, I would have told you that that would be a pipe dream. But fast forward to 1 year later, where we are in Season 7 of GBL, and we've spent the entire season here together exploring Master Classic, learning about the different team compositions, and trying to get better at this format. So what a better way to end the Exploring Master Classic series for Season 7 of GBL than to make a speed run to Legend. Hey, what's good everyone? Welcome back to the channel. I wanted to make one last video for Exploring Master Classic in Season 7 of GBL, and today's video is going to be a double meta line feature of two teams that you might be running into in Master Classic. So with Season 8 of GBL coming up and now getting 4 weeks of Master Classic, I figured this would be a really good time to start introducing some of the common meta lines that you're going to be running into, and this way you'll be able to see how to play those meta lines and how to play against those meta lines. So the reason that I'm featuring this screenshot over here is this is the starting rank for my alt account this season, so didn't play a whole lot of games on it, but I did start at 2382, and after the first split of Master Classic, I pretty much stopped playing on this account. So coming into the last week of Master Classic, I decided to see if I could speedrun and if I could make it to Legend using all of the principles that we had learned over the course of the season. So we played meta lines, we played spicy picks, and the entire time we're trying to figure out how to read our opponent's team compositions through our POV3 video series. And applying all of these concepts together, I put a challenge to myself: can I play the hard meta line, and can I get to Legend in a single week of playing Master Classic? So let's go ahead and take a look at the two teams that I played to reach Legend. And I guess if you've already seen the title of the video, I did definitely hit my goal here, gaining over 550 points in the course of 1 week. So let's go ahead and get started. So getting into the first team that I used was the classic 2 Butters line, which consists of a Melmetal lead, Dialga save swap, and a Dragonite in the back. So this functions very similarly to an ABB line, where we are using Dialga to bait out the best Dragon counter, using Melmetal to eliminate that, and then having Dragonite sweep in the back. So it's pretty hesitant earlier to play this line because while it's an ABB line, it is very ABA weak to Groudon lead in general. So, but what I found out through practice is that Groudon is going to take quite a bit of damage from the Dragon Breath from Dialga, and it's going to have a very hard time being able to handle both of your steel types. So very important to swap into the Dialga if you encounter a Groudon lead here, because Dialga can still deal quite a damage before going down, and you're still going to have the Dragonite in case they swap out, and you're able to win switch somehow. So this team actually wound up being the team that I gained the most points with, and also the team that I learned the most about Master Classic with, because it does force you to navigate around those very hard matchups, but it's also very rewarding to play. It's also a very strong core. The Melmetal Dialga core is incredibly strong in Master Classic right now, and a very good line to pick up potentially for the following season. So let's take a look at my Legend set here. I am starting off at 2974, so just a 4-1 set away or a 5-0 from hitting Legend for the very first time in Master Classic. So getting into the first battle of the run, we are going up against ME23019. And we're going to be leading a Melmetal into a Giratina Origin. So this is an absolutely terrible matchup for Melmetal, but this is the reason that we designed this team, is to have 2 Giratina Origin answers in the back. So I'm going to bring in the Dialga here to check for what the hardest Dragon counter is, and it's going to be a Dialga. My opponent's going to mirror with the Dialga here, and I'm going to have the energy advantage, but I have taken some Shadow Claw damage, so I cannot fully Dragon Breath down. I'm going to have to force 2 shields with this Iron Head and gain a shield advantage, or I can gain switch advantage by being the first to throw the second Iron Head. So my opponent is of course going to shield the first Iron Head, and I'm going to go ahead and match the shields here to be able to win that switch advantage. So because I have a small energy lead, this next Iron Head is going to be the most crucial, because it is going to force my opponent to make the first decision, and I'm going to get to it right before I faint. And right now it's up to my opponent to decide, does he want to win switch advantage or not? And my opponent here, surprisingly, lets it go. So this is kind of interesting, because at this point I kind of figured he probably isn't afraid of Melmetal in the back, so maybe a Groudon, maybe something else to counter the Melmetal with. But we have the Dragonite here, which is the most important asset that we have right now, and we're going to be able to bring in the Dragonite to counter the Giratina Origin. So in this particular matchup, it's very important here that you do not shield the first charge move from Giratina Origin. So Shadow Ball might be a little bit scary, but in this particular case, I have to make sure that it is a Shadow Ball, because if my opponent throws an Ominous Wind here and I do shield it, and my opponent gets the boost, then there is no way the Dragonite can win. But if I let the first charge move through, and it is an Ominous Wind in this case, even if you got the boost from that position with a 1 shield advantage, or 1 shield matching, the Dragonite can still win. So I'm going to wait for my opponent to throw a charge move here. It's probably a Shadow Ball. And even if this deals quite a chunk of damage, I have to retain the shield. So my opponent swaps out instantly and brings in the Melmetal, and I'm a little bit confused because I thought my opponent should have brought in the Melmetal against my Dialga to be able to hardwall that, but I think he wanted to use the Melmetal here as a backup Melmetal counter once we reach the end game. And at this point I realized that I cannot shield, because the only way that my opponent can win here is if I do decide to shield my Melmetal, win the matchup, and then my opponent can Shadow Claw down my Melmetal and throw a charge move into my Dragonite. So unfortunately I am behind in energy, so I have to take these superpowers, but I do want to fire one more superpower before I faint. And gonna go for the superpower here. My opponent is 1x debuff, so he will take quite a bit of damage from the superpower getting into the red. And unfortunately, that was a CMP tie. So here my opponent is going to throw energy, gonna let this one go, and I have the Dragon Claw saved up on the Dragonite already, so I'm going to come in and throw it right away. And even if my opponent's double debuff, it is still steel typing, so I'm not going to be able to KO it, but I will get it into a reasonable level of health so that I can start threatening it. So my opponent does use the last shield here, tries to get to the rock slide to KO me, and I have to use my last shield. But the good thing is I farmed up some energy, right? So having that little bit of energy is going to help me in the next matchup, because I know that the switch timers are coming back up and Giratina Origin's coming back in. So gonna throw right away to prevent the Giratina Origin from getting any more energy. And as I'm fighting the Giratina Origin, I can see that it has a little bit of sliver of health left. So if you guys know, the Melmetal is energy dry right now. So as long as I get 1 second of Dragon Breaths in, I will win CMP against this Melmetal when it comes back in. So this Giratina faints, and I can see from my energy bar, I am 5 seconds away from Dragon Claw. He is 5 seconds away from Rock Slide. Am I going to be able to pull this off? And I do by just a second, a sliver of health, and I'm going to be able to take this first match here, a very, very close one against Giratina Double Steel playing Melmetal Double Dragon. So very close one, GG's and well played, but I think my opponent did make a mistake here in the mid game, not bringing the Melmetal in to meet my Dialga, because had he saved that Dialga for my Dragonite in the back, this game would have been totally over. Getting into our second matchup of the run, we're going up against Ieyasu Sky. So shout out to you from the Wallower Discord, my friend. I did not realize this was you at the time. And we're leading the Melmetal into the Dialga, which is the dream lead for this team. So once again, I'll be building up a bunch of energy here before throwing the first superpower, hoping to CMP tie on the Dialga's charge move so he cannot swap out. And gonna get to 11 here, which is right for the Draco Meteor. And I'm expecting my opponent to throw the Draco Meteor right on the 11 mark, and gonna go for the first superpower here. And I'm going to deal quite a bit of damage, and of course we're going to CMP here. So I'm going to let this one go, as the Melmetal has done its job here, freeing up the Dialga and the Dragonite to be able to function in the back. And my opponent actually Iron Head baits me here, which is very interesting, but we already CMP tied. Should have probably charged up a little bit more energy there to get a bigger advantage going in. And my opponent's going to let this go and bring in the Giratina Altered Form, which means I can bring in my Dialga, and unfortunately my opponent has a Dragonite in the back and concedes immediately. So yeah, really sorry to Ieyasu Sky here. I know the triple dragon meme team is very fun, but unfortunately in this case, having a double steel lineup with the Dialga there to counter the backline of dragons was a very bad situation. So GG's. I know you made it to legend much later on, so congratulations, but I know this match was not for you. Our third match of the run is up against King Darkrai, and I'm going to be leading a Melmetal into a Mewtwo. So this is a pretty neutral lead. It really depends on the moveset of the Mewtwo. So the way I like to play this lead is that I like to charge up to a Rock Slide, and then throw the Rock Slide and then bail out to my Dialga. So this way the Melmetal can get some value, and I know that the Mewtwo is not going to throw a Side Strike into my Melmetal just yet. And as I bring in the Dialga, I'm counting the Psycho Cuts, and my opponent only throws at 8. So this is definitely not a Focus Blast, which means that I can let this go without any problem. So I'm going to go ahead and let my opponent throw his energy, and it's just a Side Strike bait. So no big deal here, expecting my opponent to swap out, and he brings in his own Dialga. So this is a pretty good situation for me, because the Dialga's not there to win the switch advantage, right? The Dialga is there to bait out his best dragon counter, which in this case happens to be another Dialga. My opponent is going to shield the Iron Head as well, which is fantastic value. I am going to get Dragon Breath all the way down, but my Melmetal is relatively healthy, taking almost no damage from the Cycle Cuts, which means now I could come in, tank a charge move, gain a bunch of energy, and then have Dragonite with much better matchups in the back. So this is probably a Draco Meteor here, no big deal for me. And although it does a ton of damage here, this means that I'm going to be able to charge up to 8 extra Thunder Shocks of energy before I decide to throw my my energy. And that's exactly what I do. Going up to double superpower here, gonna land the superpower, take out this Dialga. My opponent has no reason to really shield here, because the Dialga is debuffed into attack. And as the Mewtwo comes back in, gonna throw the Rock Slide here. And this feels really good for me, having been up a shield, eliminated the Dialga, and then have a 2-shield Dragonite in the back. My opponent is going to take the damage from the Rock Slide, and is going to bring in a Therian Landorus. So I have played Therian Landorus on my channel before, and to be honest, I wasn't too impressed with it, especially the Therian version taking 7 mud shots to get to that Stone Edge to be able to threaten that Dragonite. There is no way that I'm going to let any charge move pass here, and I'm going to easily reach the second Dragon Claw here before my opponent reaches the second Stone Edge. And then of course we're going to have a shield for the Mewtwo in the back here. So opponent's going to go for the Stone Edge here, no problem at all. Going to get to the Dragon Claw here, and Therian Landorus is fairly squishy, so this is going to deal a ton of damage to it, and unfortunately my opponent is not going to be able to reach the next charge move, and of course the Mewtwo in the back has no chance at this moment. So GG's my opponent right there. Kind of got countered a little bit, but again, having the Dialga bait out the Dialga in return, having the Melmetal gain a bunch of energy, and wasting the Mewtwo's energy really worked out for me in the end. So of course everything looks like it's going really smooth so far, but we are going to go up against Chippus 5 in the 4th battle of the set. And of course this is what I was talking about earlier. We're leading Melmetal into a Groudon, which is very painful, and I have to swap into my Dialga right away. So here I expect my opponent to stay in and potentially get to the Earthquake, because the Groudon will reach the 8th mud shot before you get to the first Iron Head. So gonna have to shield this up and respect it as always, but my opponent knows this and is gonna be baiting me with a Fire Punch. So this is pretty bad for me, and my opponent not only has the Groudon but also has a Dialga, so we are definitely going to lose switch advantage here. I'm going to try my best to get as much damage as I can off here, but we are definitely in an uphill climb for this battle, because I definitely know what's in the back already. Usually if you have a Groudon lead, there's probably going to be a strong Generalist in the back, so expecting either an Ultra Form Giratina, which, you know, Dragonite can potentially handle, or a Mewtwo. So going to go for the Iron Head here. My opponent is going to shield to maintain switch advantage, and we're going to get Dragon Breath all the way down. So this is a pretty bad situation for us, but at this point of health, Dialga can be Thunder Shock down. So going to wait my switch timer out and bring in the Melmetal, and this is going to be hard farm city. So definitely expecting a nuke move here on the Melmetal. No reason to not throw the move here, and it's only Iron Head, so I think it's not a big deal, but because the Thunder Shocks do take a while to farm down, my opponent is going to reach the actual nuke here right before he goes down, and even if this is going to be a big move here, I cannot shield. I have to retain the shield for the Dragonite, and unfortunately my opponent does use the Draco Meteor here. So going to get some extra energy here, and I probably should have thrown the superpower right now, but I go directly into my Dragonite. Oops, a little bit of video mess up here, and my opponent does have a Mewtwo to meet me in the back. Unfortunately for me, Dragonite does not win this in the one shield. Dragonite would need to be up a shield to be able to win this, because Mewtwo just gets to those side strikes so quickly. And unfortunately for me, I'm going to try to hold out as long as I can to not use a shield, but right now Mewtwo is at 2 side strikes. Definitely going to shield one up, and going to try to Dragon Breath all the way down, but it's going to be a very difficult time. So going to get to the second side strike here from Mewtwo. Have to shield this one up. And it's kind of up to me to see if this Dragonite can carry me to the end game, but I know that this is going to be a very tough battle. So fortunately for me, I do get to Dragon Breath down this Mewtwo, but unfortunately Groudon doesn't win CMP, so had a Fire Punch the whole time waiting for me. There was nothing I could do here, and unfortunately in this case, Groudon with double hard counter in the back for a back line just didn't really work out, so I'm going to make the most efficient play here and go ahead and top left. So one instant Q later, and for our final battle to Legend, we're playing up against Shadow Worms. And we're going to be leading the Melmetal into a Dialga. So this is, of course, the dream lead for what you want to see for potentially your last battle to Legend. And I'm going to play this in the same way that I played the previous Dialga matchup, which is to charge up a bunch of energy before I decide to throw my first superpower here. And going to try to throw here on 9. So that the opponent is only at an Iron Head. So going to go for the superpower here, see what my opponent does, and we're going to build up some more energy after the first superpower. So going to land the first one, which is great, and I actually decided to go for the superpower immediately here, see what my opponent does. And if I can grab a shield here, that'd be great. So I do get the shield here. Gonna try to get to the next superpower, and my opponent throws right on 11, which is a Draco Meteor. I am gonna have to actually shield this because I think I did misplay a little bit. No big deal though. He does go for the Thunder here, which would have done quite some damage. So gonna charge up again, get a little bit of extra energy, and build up before I throw another superpower here. Exit with a little bit of bonus energy here. So No reason for my opponent to shield here. He's a little bit too far out of reach to get to another charge move, and I'm going to safe swap here no matter what. So you can see me clicking ahead of time. My opponent actually has a Groudon in the back. So for me here, possibly a mistake here, but my Melmetal was so debuffed that it would have gotten so little value, and I was a little bit scared that the Groudon would be able to farm it all the way down, in which case would cause a bunch of problems for me. So I'm going to shield the first move up from this Groudon here, and I'm going to try to get the shields down if I can. So I'm going to go for the Iron Head here, expecting my opponent to shield if he is scared of the Steel type. And in this case, my opponent is going to match. So here, my Dialga will go down, but it will inflict a ton of damage here onto this Groudon, and the Groudon is going to be energy dry. So he's going to be at about 25% or so right before he gets to the red region. So this is completely okay. And it was a good thing that I actually wound up throwing a charge move and shielding and taking 2 charge moves from this Groudon, because had I not done that and I let my Dialga go down the first time, my opponent would have effectively gained back switch advantage right there. So at this point, I'm going to wait my switch timer out and bring in the Dragonite. And at this point, my switch timer should almost be back up. So my opponent's going to swap instantly into a Mewtwo. So at this point, I can see that my switch timer is coming back up. Going to get to 5, cast the Side Strike on the Melmetal here. The Melmetal still has energy, which means it can still inflict some damage to this Mewtwo before it goes down. And right now, my win condition is to try to get as much damage as possible done onto this Mewtwo. And going to reach the first Rock Slide here. At this point of health, it's probably not possible for the Melmetal to get to a second Rock Slide, so actually has to go for Superpower here. So my opponent is furiously farming me down, and I'm going to get to a Superpower right before I faint here. And my opponent at this point has, I believe, 10 Psycho Cuts, so this is going to be a problem for me. My opponent can back to back, but as you can see, as I come in with the Dragonite to get to the Dragon Claw here, one Dragon Breath actually sneaks through here, and my opponent's going to go for the Side Strike. So as soon as I take the damage here, I realized that Dragon Breath sneaking through actually gave me the win here. And in this particular case, Groudon's going to come back in, and we have the Dragon Claw ready for the Groudon. Groudon at 25% health, no energy. Going to take the Dragon Claw here, and that is going to be the win for us. So going to be able to go 4-1 in this set at the 29-47 range, which means that we are definitely going to be guaranteed Legend after we claim our rewards. And as you can see here, a 4-1 set at 29.74, able to get us to 30.17, which means that I was able to hit Legend for the first time in Master Classic. So this is pretty huge for me, but we're not done yet, right? We have a Pikachu Libre set to go. So decided to change to the second team that I've been playing, which is the Kyogre Double Dragon line. So let's go ahead and get into that lineup as well. All right, so getting into our second team for the video here, we have the Kyogre Double Dragon line, and I featured this before with Giratina Altered in the back line. However, my ult account does not have a Giratina Altered fully powered up yet, so decided to replace that with Zekrom and see how that performs instead. And I gotta say, Zekrom is actually a pretty strong pick right now. So same concept as last time, using the Dialga to bait out the best dragon counter, using Kyogre to take that down, and then having Zekrom sweep in the back. So Zekrom has a very interesting moveset, using Crunch to be able to hit the Giratinas and the Mewtwo's, and then of course having the Wall Charge to be able to hit neutral targets like Melmetal, and also hitting the Kyogre, of course. So overall, for a moveset here, I do recommend Blizzard on Kyogre, because very often you're going to be running into particular dragon leads like Giratina Altered or maybe Dragonite, and if they have the double dragon protection in the back, such as the Steel types or the ground types, you are going to need to land a Blizzard on the dragon as your overall win condition. So I do believe that does happen in this video clip. And for movesets also, I prefer Thunder on Dialga here, mainly because you are very weak to a Thunder Kyogre in the lead, so because we are carrying that Blizzard. And for the IVs here, the most important IV, of course, is to hit that 15, 14, 12 on both Zekrom and Dialga. They have the same stat distribution here, so you need those minimum IVs to perform. And very optionally, you do need a 15 attack on Kyogre, because you will hit a Waterfall breakpoint against Melmetal, which makes that matchup a lot more clean than it should be. So on my main account, I actually have a 14 attack Kyogre, and I've definitely seen some matchups where I've left that Melmetal with just a sliver of health. So if you can get a Kyogre with 15 attack, that's going to be the best case scenario. So let's go ahead and get into this Pikachu Libre set. So getting into the first match of our Pikachu Libre set, we're going up against Phantom Menace, and I actually wound up picking the wrong team, or maybe it didn't register, but I'm playing my Melmetal team again, so here we are getting punished with a Melmetal into a Groudon, which I have to swap into my Dialga here. So a little bit unfortunate. Really wanted to play that Kyogre line, and as you can see, that Kyogre line would have lined up pretty well against this team as well. So here the Groudon is going to throw energy, of course, and I have to respect the Earthquake with the shield. And he wants a Fire Punch baiting me, of course, and brings in another Steel counter with a Ho-Oh. So this is pretty rough for me. And basically at this point, with the shield advantage that Ho-Oh has, there's no way that Dialga can win this matchup unless I really bait with Iron Head. But I go for the Thunder here. It gets shielded, and there's really no point for me to shield again here to go down 0 shields against the Groudon. So I'm going to let this move go. And actually was expecting the Brave Bird here, but it is going to be an Earthquake in full, which means that I'm going to have to come in with Dragonite and farm all the way down. So at this point, lost switch advantage. Probably going to have to shield again because the Ho-Oh is not debuffed, and this really shows the strength of Ho-Oh in this particular matchup in the back line against the Dialga. So going to have to shield this up because it is going to be a Brave Bird, but hoping that the energy that I have is going to be able to carry us through here, and gonna be able to farm this all the way down, come out with 2 Dragon Claws, which is not too bad. So based on what the last Pokemon is going to be, might have a chance still to win, and unfortunately it's going to be a Mewtwo. So gonna try to make the same play that I did earlier, try to catch on 5 so that the Melmetal can absorb the energy, because right now Dragonite is going to be the only way that I can win this game. So gonna throw back-to-back Dragon Claws there, letting through a 3rd Psycho Cut, so we're just 2 Psycho Cuts away. And my opponent here makes a very smart move. He decides to overcharge bit on energy, and unfortunately, I'm going to try to catch the Side Strike, but I cannot, and I make a worse mistake by going for double superpower here. Of course, I should have just gone for the first superpower immediately, because I need this Groudon to be fairly low so that I can still survive 1 Side Strike. But in this case, unfortunately, gonna try to, I actually thought about Dragon Breathing this all the way down, but knowing that Mewtwo wins CMP anyways and he's got the move, I think at this point that the game is pretty much over. So this Groudon is gonna go for the Earthquake, dealing as much damage as possible, guaranteeing that the Side Strike will KO. So gonna still play this out, gonna get to this 2 Dragon Claws here, and gonna throw the charge move and just hope my opponent maybe fumbles his fingers. But as you can see here, Groudon goes down, gonna have the Dragon Claw, but Mewtwo is going to win CMP. So we actually wind up losing our first match of the Pikachu Libre set. Unfortunate, but again, we selected the wrong team. Might have had a much better shot if we actually had the team that we selected. So GG's to my opponent right there, and let's move on to the next battle. All right, so now with the actual team that we wanted to showcase in this video, going up against Courage T, and this time we're going to be leading Kyogre into a Giratina. So like I said before, if you do see a Giratina Ultra lead with this team, you definitely want to go into the Zekrom instead of the Dialga, because you want the Dialga to be matched up against Giratina eventually, and Dialga takes neutral damage from those Dragon Claws because that's Steel typing as well, and Zekrom is going to be, still going to threaten the Giratina, but it's going to be taking a ton of damage from those Dragon Claws overall. So, and when you see the Giratina Ultra lead, assume that there are 2 Giratina counter swaps in the back as well. So right now, I already know that my win condition is potentially going to be to land a Blizzard on Kyogre. So my goal here is to draw out the best Dragon counter here. My opponent is going to charge up a little bit of energy here and bring in a Dialga. So you are going to lose this matchup eventually as a Zekrom, but again, the Iron Heads are resisted, and so is the, if he has a Thunder or Draco Meteor, it's going to take a while to get to. So I can at least get 1 charge move off to deal some damage, and my opponent decides to shield. So right now, first step is down, right? Get the 1 shield. Now we need to get 2 shields down. So gonna bring in my Dialga here, and we're gonna go head to head here. And my goal is to take out this Dialga and come out with a bunch of energy if possible. So because my opponent has a bunch of energy already, I'm already expecting here to double shield in my head. So that's what I'm going to commit to here. And the idea here is maybe what's in the back is weak to the Dialga's charge moves, so that way I can apply some pressure here and get the shields down, because I know that as soon as I swap in my Kyogre here, whatever's in the back is probably weak to Kyogre, and it's going to draw back out the Giratina Altered, which means it's going to go down to a Blizzard. So I'm going to wait for my opponent to bring in the last and 3rd Pokemon here, and as I take a look in the top right corner, expecting something to come in, and it is going to be a Togekiss. So actually we're in a decent position here because we are very close to 2 Iron Heads on Dialga here. Thank you, Marlon Kanto, for the follow, and going to be able to reach both Iron Heads in this case before the Dialga goes down. Probably could have tried to go for the Thunder here, but I got a little bit scared. I was just 1 charm's worth of damage away, but didn't know if that last charm was going to KO, but am going to go for the Iron Head here. And gonna bring in my Kyogre immediately, and my opponent's gonna swap back into the Altered. So this is exactly what you want to see here. Even if the Kyogre does, or the Altered has some energy, you are gonna be able to reach a Blizzard against the tankier version of Giratina. Against Origin, not so much. You're not gonna really have much of a shot unless you have some energy to farm down with. But in this case here, I just need this Altered to give me a little bit of a break here. But I know that I can survive at least 2 more Dragon Claws here. So gonna be able to reach that last bit of waterfall damage here, and as you can see right before I get to it, I am going to get that last waterfall through. So need to undertap here. Am going to survive this Dragon Claw here because Giratina Altered's damage output is not very high, and going to get off this Blizzard right on. So I have a sliver of health left, and this Togekiss has already sustained quite a bit of damage from the Iron Head here. And I know it's very close to a charge move, and I think at the very end here, gonna do one more waterfall worth of damage here. But as you can see from the animation, my opponent actually must have missed the charge move button because that Togekiss was in a charm animation and definitely had the charge move right there. So not sure what happened right there, but Dialga was able to come in and snipe it down. So able to come back from a double hard countered lead into 2 dragons right there, and then be able to Blizzard a Kyogre as I stated before. All right, getting into our third match of the set here, we're going up against Rice Forever, 12-15. And of course, he's not going to make it easy because we are leading Kyogre into a Dialga. So once again, this is very similar to the Giratina Alter lead, where your win condition potentially is to land a Blizzard somehow on this Pokemon here at the very end, except it's going to be much harder because Dialga takes neutral damage from the Blizzard because of that Steel typing. And in this case, you do have to go into your own Dialga, which this is one of the toughest leads to play with this team. And in this particular case, my opponent does have a Groudon in the back. So I'm going to get to the charge move here. So my opponent is definitely over farming some energy right here. But getting to this charge move means that I can potentially force a shield, which is good. You do want shields down at the very end. So my opponent does invest into the shield against the Iron Head here. And in this case, no reason to shield here because my opponent is going to definitely reach the second charge move before I reach it. And yeah, this Earthquake's going to definitely hurt. So going to come in here with Kyogre and farm all the way down. And knowing that my opponent already has some energy left over from the first throw, this is definitely going to be an Earthquake. No reason to throw a Fire Punch bait here. So going to shield this up because this Kyogre might come in handy much later on. And right now, because the only members of the team that are left are Zekrom and Kyogre, you kind of have to tag team this Dialga in a way where can maybe get it low enough so that when Zekrom comes in, you can match the damage on the Dragon Breaths there and still maybe take it out. So I decided to stay in here. I'm going to stay in here and build up to a Blizzard and bait with the Surf here, because if my opponent is counting, he's going to know that I'm at 10 Waterfalls, and 10 Waterfalls can potentially lead to quite a bit of damage. But and my opponent does shield here, so this is pretty good for me. I'm going to swap into my Dialga now because in this particular case, if I call this right now, but I mean, I get scared and I shield anyways. My opponent actually throws a Thunder at me for some reason. So in this particular case right now, this Dialga is in potential range for Crunch. So I'm going to get to the charge move here before he gets to the next one. And we're going to be in a pretty decent situation here because we have Kyogre with a bunch of energy here. And we have a situation where there's the Giratina altered in the back. So once again, win condition realized, right? The Dialga does not have enough energy. And we're going to be able to reach a potential Blizzard here and be able to waterfall down this Dialga. So Zekrom going to go down, has done his job, right? Has chunked this Dialga to the best of its ability. And here in this case, we're in a much better position because we have almost enough energy for a Blizzard here. And we're going to have enough potential health here to survive an Iron Head. So going to go ahead and reach this Blizzard against the Giratina. Not going to reach another Dragon Claw here. So we're going to be in a pretty good spot here. And because the Dialga is fairly low enough, as it turns out, Kyogre is a double Dragon counter confirmed. Dialga is going to come in, take 2 Waterfalls, not going to reach the charge move. We're going to survive with just a sliver of health. So that was definitely a way that we could have clawed back into this game. Very interesting team composition, of course. Having 2 Melmetal counters in the back for Dialga makes a ton of sense. But in that particular case, all we had to do was get shields down, and we were going to be in a really good spot. For the 4th match of the set, we're going up against Franktron 5000. And once again, we're going to be seeing a familiar matchup here, going Kyogre into the Dialga once again. So again, unfortunate, have to dip to our own Dialga and see what's in the back here. And my opponent's going to bring in a Landorus. So it's a little bit unfortunate here because you have an Incarnate Landorus, and Incarnate Landorus is much better than the Therian version in my opinion, because those 7 seconds to get to Earth Power compared to the Earthquake on Therian Landorus or even the double Superpower, it's going to be much more consistent, and this is going to be a huge problem for the team. So need to take it out, both in terms of getting rid of it to have Zekrom have a better matchup in the back. And also, I mean, Kyogre does have a pretty good follow-up matchup. We are going to lose this matchup unless we invest all of our shields. So I'm not ready to do that just yet. So going to go ahead and Dragon Breath this down. And here I decided to use a shield because I'm going to have to use a shield anyways. And I wasn't sure if Kyogre could fully waterfall down at this point. So going to make my opponent use all of his energy. And now I can let it go. So I think I would have had to use a shield anyways because I felt like my Kyogre was going to be important for whatever was in the back. So in this particular case, because the Landorus is energy dry, I can now come in with Kyogre and fully waterfall down. So pretty much sustaining the same amount of damage, but absorbing the extra mud shot damage on my Dialga instead. So I think that was a pretty decent trade-off here. My opponent is going to come back with the Dialga. So in this particular case, I actually tried to catch a move because I didn't know if I was going to make it to the Blizzard in time, and my opponent senses this, and unfortunately, it is Dialga double ground against Kyogre double dragon that are weak to ground. So pretty unfortunate situation for us, and again, I'm realizing my win condition here is Blizzard onto the Dialga if I can get there, and gonna be able to land this crunch here. And at this point, I actually thought that I could fully Dragon Breath down this Groudon if I use one shield. So in this particular case here, it is a Hundo Groudon, and maybe I should sim this a little bit more, but I do decide to use the shield here, probably erroneously against the Groudon here. And as you can see, gonna start Dragon Breathing, and I think I'm almost gonna get there, but unfortunately with a sliver of HP left, this is actually gonna be an Earthquake and it's gonna take us out. So unfortunately for us here, Groudon's going to use the Earthquake, and I have to come in with Kyogre here. Going to get minimal farm, so I know at this point that the writing is on the wall because the enemy Dialga has not thrown any energy yet. So whether it's a Thunder or a Draco Meteor, the only thing that Dialga has to do is shield once, and unfortunately we're going to get taken out. So a little bit of an unfortunate situation right there, but we're now 2-2 in our Pikachu Libre set. And our final battle for our Pikachu Libre, we're going up against Goku X, and unfortunately, this is an expert ranked trainer, so if you do see this video, I hope that you got to Legend, but it was getting pretty late, so I knew I had to win anyways, and we have a very favorable lead of Mamoswine into Kyogre here. My opponent is going to bring in the Mewtwo here, and this player plays this really well, so definitely I hope that you got Legend because unlike the previous Mewtwo opponent that we saw in the first set, this opponent charges up to 9 Psycho Cuts. So here I do actually have to respect the Focus Blast here, and I cannot afford to lose switch advantage because Mamoswine is going to tear the Zekrom apart in the back. So gonna go ahead and shield here to respect the Mewtwo, and as soon as I do, I see that it's a Psy Strike, and now we are in a very bad spot because if you look at the 2 shield situation for Mewtwo versus Dialga, if Mewtwo can land 2 Psy Strikes, 2 Psy Strike baits here, it will reach the Focus Blast in time. So I'm in a very tricky spot right now. Do have to throw energy here because if my Dialga does go down, at the very least I want to get a shield for it. So gonna go ahead and throw the Iron Head, and actually let a Psycho Cut through for my opponent, so it gives him even more energy. And of course my opponent is going to shield this because he doesn't want the Kyogre matched up onto the Mamoswine. And now my opponent's going to go for another charge move right here. And once again, I'm going to have to shield this. So this puts us in a very tough situation because now my opponent is just 4 Psycho Cuts away from the final Focus Blast. But as it turns out, my opponent is actually going to throw on 4 again, and I think that this is going to be a Focus Blast and that the game is over. But as it turns out, my opponent only has a Shadow Ball, so I will survive this. I will actually reach an Iron Head here while Dragon Breathing down the Mewtwo, and I'm expecting the Mamoswine to come back in so that you know, I can throw the Iron Head at it, force a shield, and then have my Kyogre in a really good spot. But my opponent again brings in the 3rd Pokemon here, which we are going to see is the gonna wait for a second here, waiting out the switch timer, and my opponent's going to bring in his own Dialga. So this is very unfortunate because we have a Dialga in the back here, and it's going to take quite a bit of tag teaming in order to make this work. My only hope here is that the Zekrom can come in here and land a crunch. So I'm going to throw the Iron Head here to fake the Draco Meteor, hoping that my opponent wasn't counting, and he wasn't, so this is really good. Going to let this go down and bring in the Zekrom. So at this point, the Zekrom can still outpace the Dialga to a crunch, and it's going to survive an Iron Head, right? So this is a really good situation. Gonna get to the crunch here. Was expecting the catch from the Dialga, but it never came. So, and as soon as I land this, I realize that I can actually Dragon Breath down this Dialga, and my opponent senses it too, bringing in the Mamoswine. I'm not going to mess around here, not going to try to overfarm, just going to go straight for the Surf when I get it, and I'm going to win CMP. So at this point, the Mamoswine has been fainted. My opponent's only win condition here is that he can Thunder me or Draco Meteor me, and then he's going to be forced to try to Dragon Breath down my Zekrom, and this is a fantastic situation because here we're definitely going to expect some kind of nuke move to come in. It is the Draco Meteor, drops the Dialga's attack just enough so that my Zekrom can come back in, and with this small health advantage here, going to be able to take the win there against this team. So so despite my opponent playing very well, once again charging up to that Focus Blast to psych me out, to make me use my shields, was still able to maintain switch advantage as well as come back in the late game against that Dialga in the back. So could have been a very tricky spot there, definitely could have lost right there if my opponent had maybe caught a crunch. because that way the Zekrom would have definitely been pretty useless right there. But thankfully, landed the crunch, forced my opponent to swap out, threw immediately to win CMP, and then forced my opponent to use the nuke, which allowed Zekrom to come in and clean up. So GG's to my opponent right there, and we're going to be able to claim our Pikachu Libre. All right, so able to claim our Pikachu Libre here, our trophy for Season 7 of GBL, as we were able to hit Legend for the first time officially in Master Classic. I know I've been hovering around those 2,900 and 3,000 elo on my main, but again, it felt really good to make the official climb here on my alt account and in such a speedy fashion. So we are going to end that set, and our final elo for the season on our alt account is 3040. So crossing that threshold and being a little bit higher than the Legend rank definitely feels really good after all that we've gone through this season to get used to the format and learn about it as much as we possibly can. So 3040 will be our final elo for this alt account here, with about a 63% win rate, with about half of those battles coming inside Master Classic. So definitely taking those fundamentals that we have learned from exploring Master Classic and applying those to a speed run to Legend. So I am definitely looking forward to Season 8 of Master Classic, as we'll get much more time to work with this meta, and hopefully with the increased participation, we'll see some more innovation come in, especially with Yveltal now coming into the meta. So was definitely able to get a hundo from GBL, so I'm very excited to max this out, give it a second move, and start doing test battles right away. So definitely keep an eye out on the channel for further content regarding that Pokemon and potential team compositions that you can use to take advantage of it. So once again, if you enjoy this content, feel free to leave a like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends, and I will see you in the next season of GBL.